Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror film, Descent Part 2. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins when an old man wearing a cowboy hat, nicknamed Cowman, is driving his truck along the highway in the middle of the woods. A deer suddenly passes by, forcing him to stop abruptly. As he waits for the deer to pass through, a bloody woman named Sarah knocks on his door, asking for help. Sarah cannot remember anything, and she eventually gets brought to the hospital. It turns out Sarah and her friends went to explore a cave previously. They encountered monsters in the deep cave. Sarah is the only one who managed to come back, and her friends are still missing. The authorities then launch a search operation to find them. The search operation is composed of 2 police officers, the sheriff and his deputy, and 3 cave specialists, Dan, Greg, and Kath. The sheriff receives a report that Sarah was found and is now in the hospital. As a response, the sheriff and the deputy come to the hospital to ask Sarah questions that will help them to find her missing friends. They arrive at the hospital but get disappointed upon learning that Sarah cannot remember anything. They try to ask her questions about their cave exploration, but she seems to be disoriented. She even thinks that her dead daughter is still alive. The doctor tests the blood found on Sarah's clothes. The test result reveals that it's similar to the blood type of one of Sarah's missing friends, named Juno. Meanwhile, a police officer lets the police dog search for the passage where Sarah came from. The dog leads them to the closed old mining site maintained by Cowman, so the search operation team goes to check it. Cowman says that his grandfather checked the ground underneath it, and his grandfather never came back. The folks believe that the old mining site leads to hell, but the cave specialists believe that there must be an undiscovered cave system underneath it. The sheriff announces that they will go down to search in the cave system. He also decided to bring Sarah with them, which might help her remember what happened. Cowman activates the mining system, and he lets the mining elevator deliver the search group deep into the mining site. Eventually, the search group arrives underground. After some walking, they reach the cave system beyond the mining system. The place is full of sharp rocks that look like big monster teeth. They explore it for some time. Sarah points a flashlight at a rock formation, and she has visions of a strange creature. She then screams out of fear. Apparently, she's just hallucinating. The cave specialists utilize a sensor, which guides them further into the cave. After some time, they find the body of one of Sarah's missing friends. The body is mutilated and in a gruesome condition that shocks all of them. The body suddenly moves, making it appear that it is still alive. But it turns out, a rat is only trying to come out of its mouth. Out of nowhere, the sheriff suddenly suspects Sarah of being responsible for the disappearance of her friends. He then closely guards Sarah. Meanwhile, she suddenly gets a vision of scary creatures again. She also remembers that she's swimming in bloody water, so she says that something must have attacked her and her friends in the cave. She warns them they should not continue staying in the cave, but the deputy comforts her, saying that she's just scared. They continue exploring the cave and pass through a tight passage. As they crawl through the passage, Sarah gets a flashback of the creatures that she encountered previously. In response, she instantly kicks the sheriff in the face. As she manages to get out of the passage, she also attacks Greg and the deputy, stunning both of them. She then quickly runs away, and the teen loses her. The group gets busy dealing with Greg's face injury, while the sheriff is determined to find Sarah. He searches for Sarah, while the remaining 4 pass through an unstable part of the cave as they continue to explore. The sheriff activates his heat sensor to search for the hiding Sarah. His heat sensor detects heat, which means that there's a living being nearby. Thinking that it is Sarah, he pulls out his gun as he slowly approaches it. But it turns out it is the cave creature that is similar to Sarah's vision. The creature suddenly runs, scaring the shit out of the sheriff, prompting him to shoot his gun. The force from the gun disturbs the fragile rock formation, causing the cave to shake. As a result, some of the rocks in the cave suddenly roll, driving the creature's monstrous ass away. Meanwhile, 3 of them quickly leave the unstable passage. Unfortunately, Kath is unable to leave in time, causing her to be trapped by the fallen rocks in the passage. Dan tries to remove the rock debris to open up the passage, but to no avail. Without a choice, he tells Kath on the radio that they will try to find another way to save her. This means that they need to leave the scared Kath alone in the passage for a while. They continue walking through the cave to find an alternative way to save Kath, while she's left alone in the dark, confined space. After some time, the 3 reach a wide space full of bones. Dan throws a flare which lights up the place, allowing them to find a camera. Apparently, the camera belongs to Sarah and her missing friends. They watch the footage stored in the camera. It shows the events that happened to Sarah and her friends. It reveals that a cave creature attacked Sarah and her friends while they were in the cave. While hiding behind a stone, Sarah hears the footage, allowing her to remember everything. Just then, a cave creature is in front of them, prompting them to run away out of fear. Sarah remembers that the cave creatures are blind, and they only rely on their hearing to search for their prey. Knowing this, Sarah shuts the big mouth of the deputy, who keeps shouting to find Dan. On the other side, Dan shouts back in order to find the deputy. Unfortunately for him, this alerts the cave creature, causing it to attack him. It bites his neck, and blood gushes out of his neck, leading to his death. After that, it drags Dan's body away. Sarah and the deputy silently witness everything. The deputy appears to be traumatized as she watches the horrifying scene. Sarah gets Dan's supply bag and tells the deputy to focus on surviving. After that, they continue to search for a way out of the cave. Sarah informs the deputy that she should be silent since the cave creatures track sounds to find them. In the meantime, Kath hears footsteps, making her think that it must be coming from her friends. Unbeknownst to her, there is a cave creature nearby. She shouts her friend's name, which alerts the hungry cave creature, causing it to search for her underneath the rocks. To fit in the small opening, Kath removes her helmet. She then slowly crawls out from the passage while the cave creature attempts to drag her foot. As she manages to get out, she kicks a rock, causing it to roll over the smelly cave creature and crushing its head. Kath proceeds to carefully walk into the cave until she finds Gray hiding there. They create noises as they talk to each other. After some time, they hear a cave creature approaching them. In fear, they immediately run away. On the other side, the sheriff finds Dan's dead body, alerting him of the danger nearby. To avoid being found by the cave creature, Greg and Kath team up to keep themselves elevated between the walls. The cave creature arrives, trying to search for them. The sheriff suddenly speaks on the radio, causing a noise around them, so they quickly crawl between the walls. As they reach the high ground, Greg throws the radio away, and the cave creature chases it instead. After a while, Kath tries to speak to Dan on the radio, but Greg informs him that Dan is already dead, as he heard the cave creature attack him earlier. She suddenly gets hysterical, but Greg assures her that they will escape the cave safely. They continue walking around the cave and eventually find the lifeless body of Sarah's missing friend. The body is hanging from the ceiling. They hear that there is a cave creature nearby, making them panic again. They need to reach the other side of the cave, but they cannot jump to it, so Greg suggests using the hanging body to reach the other side. Kath jumps to the body and hangs on it for a while. Two creatures arrive. One of them instantly bites Greg in the neck while the other grabs Kath. In response, Greg gets the drill and uses it to kill the creature. He then sacrifices himself and jumps to grab the other creature. As a result, he falls with the creature while Kath manages to safely reach the other side. But Kath gets emotional again, and she screams Greg's name. This calls the attention of another cave creature. As she looks behind, a creature instantly attacks her and ends her emotional life. In the meantime, Sarah leads the deputy to a water passage in the cave. Sarah reveals she has been washed out by the water last time. She says the water is flowing, indicating the water will lead them out of the cave. Without a choice, the deputy follows Sarah going into the water passage. After swimming through the waters, they both reach a dead end. Thinking that she might not survive, the deputy records herself on her phone to send a message to her child. This makes Sarah remember that her daughter is already dead, and she becomes sad. But at this point, they both need to survive, so Sarah lifts the spirit of the deputy and they continue to find an escape. Meanwhile, a cave creature attacks the sheriff, but a woman suddenly saves him. The woman turns out to be Juno, one of Sarah's missing friends in the previous episode, and she's still trying to find a way out of the cave. She continues walking, and the sheriff follows her. Back to Sarah and the deputy. They are crawling a narrow tunnel when Sarah sees a creature on the other side. A rat suddenly passes by the deputy, causing her to shout in surprise. This alerts the cave creature, causing it to crawl towards them. Sarah and the deputy then quickly crawl to the hole in the middle of the tunnel before the cave creature can reach them. They fall to a dirty pond, and the creature follows their smelly ass. Sarah beats the creature, and it falls into the water, but it emerges again to attack her. The deputy uses her hairpin to stab it in the neck, causing it to bleed to death. After that, Sarah reveals to the deputy that Juno wanted to discover the cave. Juno also wants to name it after Sarah out of guilt, since she had an affair with Sarah's husband. Sarah adds that she and Juno are the only survivors. Sarah reveals that she had to hurt Juno previously in order to escape from the cave. It turns out Juno also left one of their friends to die alone. Sarah and the deputy continue walking again, and they eventually encounter Juno and the sheriff. Juno and Sarah instantly fight each other, but the deputy tells Juno that Sarah helps the rescue team back to the cave to find her. They then think of the way out of the cave. Juno suggests that they need to follow the route of the cave creatures since they hunt above. On the contrary, Sarah thinks they must follow the water. She also questions why Juno is still staying in the cave despite knowing the way out. Juno explains that she ran out of supplies, and she does not have any light, which is necessary to traverse the cave. The sheriff suggests following Juno. He then handcuffs Sarah to him, forcing her to follow them. The group soon reach another cliff, and they must pass through unstable rocks to reach the other side. Juno and the deputy pass through the rock first. After them, Sarah and the sheriff pass through together. Sarah reaches the other side, but the bridge collapses, and the sheriff is left hanging while still attached to Sarah's hand. They try to pull the sheriff up, but he is too heavy. Just then, cave creatures are approaching the sheriff, forcing them to slowly cut his hand. This detaches him from Sarah, and he falls out of the cliff, together with the creatures that are biting his body. They continue to walk again until they reach the feeding place of the creatures. They decide to pass through the feeding creatures, and they try their best not to alert them. Apparently, the creatures also put Greg in the feeding place, and he is still alive. Greg holds Juno's leg in an attempt to seek help. This surprises Juno, causing her to scream. The noise alerts the creatures, prompting them to attack. In response, the three fight back against them. They use their own weapons until they finally kill some of the creatures. Sarah and the deputy break free, and they have the chance to run. But Sarah returns to save Juno from the remaining creature. She manages to kill it, but it already severely injures Juno in return, causing Juno to eventually die. Just then, more cave creatures arrive and surround them. Sarah sacrifices herself by screaming out loud to get their attention. The cave creatures flock to attack Sarah, allowing the deputy to safely escape the cave. The deputy manages to get out of the cave, and she emerges from a hole in the middle of the woods. She screams for help and continues to run. Out of nowhere, Cowman smashes her with a shovel, putting her to sleep. He then drags her body back to the cave hole, and a cave creature grabs her in an instant. This implies that Cowman has been feeding the cave creatures all along, and he lured the rescue team to be eaten by them, possibly because he believes his grandfather, who was trapped in the cave, had evolved for years to become the cave monster in the darkness. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.